The text outlines different ways that individuals can be targeted and harassed, including surveillance, conditioning, mobbing, street theater, and the use of directional speakers. Other tactics include sleep deprivation, baiting, gaslighting, and propaganda. The document emphasizes the importance of discrediting and isolating victims, making them feel helpless and unable to defend themselves. What are some ways that a person can tell if they are the victim of targeted individuals, electronic harassment, gangstalking, etc.? If so, how does one go about doing this? Writing by Jason Singleton. This is what I found for you. If any of these techniques are being used, then you are a victim of this organized harassment. Harassment techniques include 1. Surveillance being followed, electronic surveillance, computer and phone hacking, monitoring all online activities, and bugging of home. 2. Profiles are built to identify any and all weaknesses and insecurities to be used later. Information often obtained through sexual partners or trusted people in their lives. 3. Conditioning, where victims are sensitized to certain stimuli such as everywhere you go someone will cough as they walk past you. The goal is to make you self-police and then thank anyone who coughs. Involved in the harassment, people report of conditioning to include hand gestures, an overt use of color in people's clothing, like everyone you see wearing red, or cars a certain color or with headlights, and also known as brighting. 4. Anchoring, where someone will provide false rationales for the harassment, often many possible rationales are planted to keep the victim confused and the focus of the harassment cycles from one possible reason to another, round and around, so as to keep the victim guessing in a self-perpetuating guessing game where every scenario you are to blame and causes self-doubt, fear, intimidation, and ultimately a cycle of destructive thoughts. 5. Mobbing or true gangstalking, where everywhere you go you will see an overt display of people following you and often use words you have been conditioned to or your name to draw your attention. 6. Street theater, where a group will perform an overt activity like a fake confrontation or scenarios designed to test your reactions. Often takes the form of a couple who position themselves near you and then have a conversation using many of your conditioned words or pertaining to your particular situation and sensitivities. 7. The use of directional speakers, which have the ability to direct sound to a single individual in a crowded room. This particular item is ultimately the most used and is often referred to as v2k or voice to skull, and is used extensively in the psychological breakdown of the victim. The use initially is to cause the victim to doubt their sanity and drive them into the mental health system, and later to just torment and never give the victim a moment of privacy or peace. If they do enter the mental health system, then harassment escalates dramatically, as the victim has now been discredited and can be labeled as someone with a mental problem if they do speak out about the harassment. 8. The use of electronics to affect your eyesight and balance, which was originally developed for the military and police crowd control, called dazzling, and even the ability to make you vomit. 9. Sound campaigns, which is a community harassment technique where abnormal levels of sound are directed at the victim in their home. This includes cars deliberately braking or accelerating when they pass, people talking excessively loudly at all hours of the night, amplification of sound using directional speakers so that external sounds that previously couldn't be heard now can, garbage trucks and other heavy vehicles, and countless other deliberate tactics. 10. Sleep deprivation. This is perhaps one of the most insidious tactics used, where victims are woken multiple times a night and can be kept awake for days at a time. The effects are dramatic and completely debilitating, affecting concentration, mood, irritability, appearance, and significantly impacts all areas of their life, job performance, relationships, and significantly aids in discrediting the victim as they appear unorganized, disheveled, and sleeping patterns altered so they may sleep during the day, where noise campaigns are more effective, and be awake at night, where they can be painted as the one making noise and being a disruptive member of the community. 11. Baiting or entrapment, where victims are harassed to the point that they lash out and commit a crime such as assault, break and enter, or vandalism as they try and locate the source of the harassment. Harassers will actively try to provoke verbal and physical confrontations, especially after a period of sleep deprivation, or they are prompted into an activity which can then be used as leverage, such as affairs, sexuality, drug use, or other criminal activity. 12. Gaslighting, which is a form of psychological abuse where someone will actively try to undermine victims and to make them doubt themselves, so that they lose all self-confidence and self-esteem and are therefore easier to manipulate and push toward the mental health pathway. It can be as simple as being told something which they then deny, then telling them how silly they are for thinking they said it, and turn the lie around into an attack on the person. It can be incredibly effective coming from a trusted person and before the victim understands what is happening to them. 13. Blackbait. Jobs is a term when a harasser breaks into a victim's property and places something or deliberately moves something. The purpose is to cause self-doubt and fear that their property is being accessed, which harassers try to then sell as paranoia. 14. Propaganda and disinformation is also the other key element to suppress knowledge of this practice, as its effectiveness initially requires the victim to be unaware of the existence of gangstalking, gaslighting, or the electronic technologies such as directional speakers, so huge amounts of time are devoted online to creating disinformation sites which attempt to discredit victims by pushing the mental health agenda. They achieve this by posing as victims and actively trying to sound crazy so that all victims are treated as such. Also by creating websites claiming to help victims and being a resource for victims to come together, and then harassing them to the extent that they lose hope and no longer reach out for help, causing further isolation. 15. Further to the above, gangstalkers rely on disbelief and discrediting, and as such much of the harassment is designed, at least initially, to mimic mental health issues. They also rely on their abuse being so extreme, so pervasive, so fundamentally immoral, as to be disbelieved, and victims subsequently resort to photographing, videotaping, and sound recording their everyday encounters to disprove the countless unfounded claims made against them, especially in relation to gaslighting, which gangstalkers try to turn around and paint the victims as paranoid or irrational. Victims are made to feel helpless as every attempt to defend themselves is used against them, and when they seek help they are met with disbelief or open hostility.